Hey guys, what's up? It's Karl, and today we're gonna chat about that rumored 14-inch MacBook Pro that we all know is coming sometime in 2021. When I did my revisited review on the 13-inch MacBook Pro, I said it's a powerhouse. I did say though, you should wait, and I know a lot of you in the comments were asking about that new refresh of MacBooks because the big thing coming hopefully this year, it's pretty much confirmed we're getting a new design change. And typically Apple operates on a 4-year design cycle for their MacBook line. So in 2012, we got unibody, in 2016, we got the touch bar, and technically in 2020, that's where we should have seen that refresh, but all we got was the new M1 chip, which I think is a huge powerhouse. And now that design change is kind of lagged for an extra year, and it should now be coming in the 2021 models. So what are we getting? We've seen a ton of leaks, and a ton of them have been confirmed by some pretty reputable Apple analysts that have predicted things in the past. So the first thing that we've mentioned, the 14-inch form factor. So just like we saw the 16-inch being upgraded from the older 15-inch, I'm bringing that over here. And the main thing that we saw there was the screen size being pushed out further, so it got rid of some of the chunkier bezels. Expect to see the same thing for the 14-inch. So it should have the same form factor, theoretically, as the current 13-inch. And we can now expect those bezels to be shrunk down. And in terms of resolution, I've seen kind of mixed reports. I still think it's gonna be a Retina display. So 2560 to 1600, I've also seen people talking about a touch display. I kind of guaranteed that will not happen. It will just stay the standard normal display, a Retina display that we've seen from Apple kind of for the past almost decade. And the next big design change coming to the MacBook lineup is following in the footsteps of the iPad Pro. So very similar design in terms of squared off edges on the outside, but imagine having the screen of, say, this iPad Pro and extend that to a 14-inch form factor. So we'll see rounded edges on the display. You can see the nice thin bezels, more than enough space to have a front-facing camera. Hopefully Apple puts a half decent one inside. And on the outside, I'm sure we'll have a very similar design, so very squared edges, similar of course to the 12 Pro that I have here. It'll probably be slightly thicker. We can't have it as thin as an iPad. It needs to be a bit heftier to of course accommodate the ports, which should also be a new feature. We're actually adding good old MagSafe, and I'm gonna bring out this retro charger that I've got. So this was from my original MacBook Pro, so the pre-unibody. I wish I still had it kicking around. I think it might be at my condo, but this is a MagSafe charger. You can see how yellow the cable has gotten. At the end, it's pretty much chewed completely off. And I kind of miss this thing. It has these OG little hooks that you could use to wrap the charging cable around. Unfortunately, we no longer have that. But how this works for any of you people that are young enough to have not seen MagSafe, this is essentially like a magnet, similar to the new MagSafe. And it's a very similar concept. When this slaps onto the MacBook, it will begin charging. The nice thing about this, when you stepped on the cable or when you hit it accidentally, the MagSafe charger would remove as it's magnetic. You can't really say the same for USB-C. There are horror stories of people knocking their MacBooks off a table because they accidentally trip on the table. So nice to see that feature potentially coming back. On the flip side though, I'm a huge fan of USB-C. I wanna see that move onto the iPhone. It's industry standard, it provides juice, it's super quick. All I need is one cable from my Pro Display XDR to my MacBook, and I not only get power, but of course I get my display running. Of course, it is a $130 cable. It works with another one, but plugging this in, it's easy, quick, and it keeps my cable management on point because the last thing that I wanna do is have a MagSafe plus a USB-C port just to get image onto my monitor. So I'm really hoping Apple implements perhaps both, having the option to charge it still via USB-C if you want, and still come with that proprietary charging MagSafe in the box. Apple, if you charge extra for MagSafe, I guarantee no one will buy it. No one. It will be curious though to see what Apple ends up doing with MagSafe, but people have said, will the new MagSafe work with your MacBook? Probably not. Expect to see something more like the OG MagSafe that still plugs in somewhere on the side. In addition to MagSafe, we're reportedly getting an SD card slot, and I think having a MacBook Pro, that Pro name is used for Pro people, photographers, videographers, content creators love SD card slots. We create content all the time. All of the footage goes from this camera to the computer. We have all lived the dongle life. Since the unibody has come out, I am praying that we see the return of the SD card slot. I think it will be much loved. There'll be no more need to carry around an extra little dongle. And in reality, out of all of these extra ports, I 99.9% use the SD card slots. Haven't used OG USB-A in forever. HDMI, no need because all my monitors are USB-C. Display port, nope. And that's the I/O port that I'm most stoked to make its comeback. And in the end, the final I/O ports for the MacBook Pro line. So we will be getting two different models, the 14, which I think will be the base, and 16-inch. I could see on the 14-inch, they just lean to two USB-C ports, of course, MagSafe and the SD card slot. Over on the 16-inch, I still think we'll get two USB-C ports on one side, of course, headphone jack, one USB-C port on the other, SD card and MagSafe. So that comes to a total of 6. And I think that's the thing that's most left up in the air until we get further confirmations from Apple and until we get those further leaks. Curious to hear your thoughts though on the I/O ports in general. I know that so many people will love to see the SD card slot back. We no longer need to live the dongle life, hopefully. And to kind of wrap up the design changes, one thing that I have honestly never been a fan of, I know Nick, you love the touch bar, but I despise it. Despise, I think that's a strong word. I just honestly never use it. My favorite thing to do is go through the emojis, and I never really take full advantage of it. And we kind of saw Apple recorrect one of their, I guess, errors. They did update the 16-inch MacBook Pro to include a hard escape button. I can see them doing the same thing, including all of the OG function keys. They'll probably admit that they were wrong. They probably have a lot of data that says most people don't use the touch bar anyways. I think it's just been a bit of a gimmick for 4 years. It maybe adds an extra price factor, but I'd rather pay less for having no touch bar. So expect to see this complete area in full keys. I still think we'll see Touch ID in the top right corner. Speakers have always been industry standard on MacBooks. They've got that new 3-array mic that we got last year. Expect to see that carried on. Trackpad, once again, not too much to change. I don't think any other laptop comes close in terms of the actual trackpad. For the keyboard, don't expect to see anything new. The same magic keys will be applied over there. We've gotten rid of the butterfly switches that caused so many issues previously. And then the last major thing that I kind of want to talk about is the internals. So I've mentioned that the M1 chip over on the 13-inch, it's probably been the biggest change to the MacBook line in maybe close to a decade. The performance on this 13-inch, which is a $1,500 machine, is comparable to a $4,000 Intel-based MacBook Pro, and that's pretty crazy. As long as you're in the Apple ecosystem using Final Cut Pro, I've even seen people on Twitter using the new Sony A1 8K footage. They're able to scrub through a timeline on a 13-inch MacBook Pro like butter, which is kind of nuts. We know that Apple is currently working on their new M1X or M2 chip. Whether we'll see that in the current or the 2021 refresh kind of remains to be seen. I would honestly prefer Apple to work more closely with third-party developers like Adobe, like Google, like Microsoft, just to get those third-party apps to run as smoothly on Apple Silicon as they do on Intel-based computers. I think that will be the biggest sell. And that kind of wraps up all of the confirmed rumors and leaks for the upcoming 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros coming sometime this year. So I expect to see that announced at WWDC, maybe even earlier in the spring and fully available by then. So if you're currently in the market for a new upgrade, if you can wait those couple extra months, I definitely recommend it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Happy to chat with you guys down below in the comments if you have any other questions, and I will catch the rest of you in one of my next vids. Peace.